Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emmanuel, and I will be the moderator of this discussion. Panel discussion it will be very interesting to answer that question about the owner-operator model in a low-carbon electricity mix. It's a very big issue for you at the moment. You're at a sort of crossroad, and you know that this nuclear can improve the global warming, and it can be a very big complement to the renewable energy. Let me just introduce you the four eminent guests of this afternoon. You all know Mr. Jean-Bernard Lévy. Bonjour. Thank you so much to be here. You're the chairman of the day. You're chairman and CEO of EDF since 2014, before you were chairman of two giants of the industry also, Thales and Vivendi. We also have for the European Commission, your Greek, Mr. Gerasimos Thomas, Kalimera. Thank you so much to be here. You're a Deputy Director General in the DG Energy. You've got direct responsibilities for Euratom matters, and you're a member, for instance, of the European Nuclear Safety Regulators Group. Thank you very much to be here. Mr. Shinozaka, coming from Japan, thank you so much for this very long trip. You arrived just yesterday. You've been working for the METI for over 30 years, the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, with several positions. And your position now is Deputy Commissioner for Natural Resources and Energy. And you'll talk about Japan. It's a very, very big issue at the moment. Mr. Mike Finnerty, thank you also to be here. You're Deputy Chief Nuclear Inspector and Director for the new Reactors Division at the ONR, the Office for Nuclear Regulation. You've got a lot of experience in risk reduction, site inspection, and PMO supervision. Thank you so much to be here also. You know how it's going to work, a 5-minute presentation of our four eminent guests, and then you can ask your question. You've got the number, you've got the site also, and I will be the moderator to ask the question to our guest. So let's start with you, Mr. Lévy. You can go to the desk and have your presentation about the mix, the low carbon mix.
Thank you very much. Thank you all of you for attending, and especially our guests coming from several different countries or cities in the world. I'm happy to just say a few words as a matter of introduction. And I maybe would like to start with giving you a few ideas about how we see the context of what we do here in the nuclear industry. We at EDF believe we have to target totally carbon-free, 100% carbon-free power system by 2050, and at the same time, as we see a significant increase in transfer of energy usage from fossil to power, we see that right now 70% of the world's net energy increase is going towards electricity. This dynamic obviously is the strongest in India, in China, in Africa, and in many other countries in the world. For the first time last year, capital expenditure in the power sector surpassed investment in the oil and gas sector. There is an urgency to decarbonize and use our energy more efficiently, and in that respect, the share of electric power in the global energy mix is expected to rise, according to the International Energy Agency, to rise from less than 20% today to around 25% in 2040, and by then, the world's annual electricity production will have nearly doubled at 40,000 terawatt-hours, 40,000 terawatt-hours per annum. To achieve this, a carbon-free economy, we need to secure adequately the supply of electricity and the system stability. We believe that this will require a combination of renewables, nuclear, and electricity storage facility, and we at EDF have been working very diligently in order to implement the company's strategy in order to meet these objectives. We have a plan to grow our solar capacity very significantly. We have an electricity storage plan. We need to increase the efficiency of our nuclear fleet, which is already improving, which is significant numbers regarding our availability factors, which is around 75%, so that our carbon footprint in France is 4 equivalent gram of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour, which is lower than any other major source of electricity. I also have to say that nuclear has a significant advantage on land footprint when compared to other non-carbon emitting, carbon-free solutions when compared to onshore wind, offshore wind, or solar PV. We see the nuclear land footprint also at an advantage. So we really believe that the future will be the adequate mix of carbon-free energy as we see the 2050 target of zero emissions really near us and obviously at the forefront of the objectives of the political decision makers. Regarding our nuclear policy, let me first start by saying that most important than anything is our duty towards safety. We need to create trust with all our stakeholders. We need to adopt openness and transparency as our key values. We are right now at EDF upgrading our French nuclear fleet with life extensions and creating new third-generation technologies. We expect that by the end of 2019, we will have had 4 EPRs, third-generation technology reactors, connected to the grid. We look at nuclear also as a very flexible tool. We are capable of offsetting a change in power flows as large as, on the French scene, 20 gigawatt plus or minus is land in less than 30 minutes, which is the equivalent of offsetting 10,000 wind turbines which could fall or rise according to the wind. So obviously, especially when combined with pumping stations, and we hope to have more of that in the future, nuclear can contribute very significantly to the flexibility of the electric system and to the storage that we need. In that respect, the question that is raised, and let me now go to the owner-operator model, we believe this is a very robust solution which will address safety, flexibility, and economic viability requirements. The key question is how to ensure a fair return on investment while not compromising on safety and contributing to the system stability for the well-being of all operators. We see that as the responsibility of the operator. The operator has to develop the right capabilities and to grow the adequate resources in order to meet this responsibility in the short run and in the long run. And in that respect, combining the owner and the operator under a joint leadership, a joint governance, is the key. We believe we do that at EDF, and this is obviously the model we are going to try to develop all around the world. In EDF Group, including Framatome, now part of EDF Group since January the 1st, 2018, we have 50,000 people with engineering and operation skills. We have our 58 nuclear power plants in France, and we have 15 nuclear power plants in the UK. We have the EPRs, I talked about them, which are close to operations, but we are also building the 2 Hinkley Point EPRs in the United Kingdom. And altogether, we have more than 1,700 years of experience of nuclear operations, of reactor operations. We will adopt the same policy of the owner-operator model, which we believe is the best for safety, for reliability, for the needs of our clients. We will adopt the same approach in our export projects and with our partners. Let me mention China, let me mention India, let me mention Saudi Arabia. We believe in all these cases the owner-operator model is the right solution to ensure the appropriate involvement of the future operator, including during the development and the construction phase, that this will enable a smooth transition into operations, and that it will also permit safe operations and maintenance with a knowledgeable and responsible owner. We believe this leads to long-term partnerships like the one we have experienced with, I think, great mutual benefits in China for now more than 30 years. We believe that the EPR owner and operator group that we set up in 2015 is meant to create such an exchange of experience, such a fleet effect that will benefit from multilateral and cross-cooperation with other EPR operator owners, and we already gather these skills together with other operator owners, which I believe are all very satisfied with the model that we are probably in the world the most prominent player of, but that we try obviously to educate a lot of our partners in order for them to be our long-term partners and to benefit from our experience, and where we will also benefit from their willingness to build the future nuclear industry that we are all looking for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jean-Bernard Lévy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now we'll hear for the European Commission, Mr. Gerasimos Thomas.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, panelists. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much to EDF for inviting the European Commission to this panel. I think the starting point for all of us is the deep commitment that we have internationally and in Europe to decarbonize our economies, the commitments that we took in Paris to reduce our carbon emissions and limit the global temperature to well below 2 degrees centigrade. So this is the starting point, and that's what we are all working for. Here in Europe, we have a good starting point. Already in 2011, we outlined our roadmap to 2050 that underpinned the European efforts in the COP21 discussions. And we also have been performing very well on the way to our 2020 objectives, which was to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 20%, to introduce renewables by 20%, and to increase energy efficiency by 20%. So we have been a leader in the COP21. Europe has been a leader in the COP21 discussions, and also we have set the right degree of ambition for Europe in the post-COP21 discussions. But this is not enough, and that's, I think, what pushes us to set new targets and develop new technologies and have new policies that will allow us to keep this leadership. Under Bulgarian presidency of the European Union, we are about to complete before the end of this month one of the most ambitious reforms of our energy policy, the so-called Clean Energy Package, by setting targets for greenhouse gas emissions in 2030, renewable penetration and energy efficient targets by 2030. And the ambition for these targets has been increasing over the last 18 months, and we are very happy to see that all the member states and the European Parliament agree to increase this ambition so as to reach our targets. Going beyond 2030, we are going to articulate our policies for 2050 and 2070 in November this year. We will articulate a long-term strategy on how the Union will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and achieve decarbonization beyond 2030. And we are having a public consultation on the 10th and 11th of July to discuss with stakeholders the various scenarios and contributions that can be made to this policy. We are looking at sources of generation of energy and the different scenarios of technologies. We will look at behavioral changes of the population. It's a complex exercise, and we have to make sure that we are meticulous. It is within this context that the role of nuclear is very important. Nuclear energy provides 27% of our electricity in Europe as we speak now. Under our current studies and analysis, it is expected to continue to provide up to 1/5 of our electricity all the way to 2050. This is our current scenario by which 1/5 of our electricity will come from nuclear all the way to 2050 and beyond. For this to happen, of course, important investments are needed. The European Commission, its illustrative program, has calculated that we need to invest around 50 billion in the long-term operations and another 350 to 450 billion in new build capacity. So we have a total investment that reaches between 450 and 500 billion over the next 25 years. This is an important investment, and in that context, the proposals of the EDF chairman on owner-operator are very important. Investment can happen with a due participation of responsibility and involvement of the operator. We are neutral as European Commission on the type of model that operators and member states choose, but we are certainly see a lot of benefits in having close involvement of the owners and the operators in the process. I think that moving forward and looking at this necessary investment, it is important to see that the industry is evolving, particularly post-Fukushima. The structure of the supply chain is evolving in Europe and internationally. So it is important in view of these investments that are coming over the next 20 years to look at the supply chain and make sure that we have a robust supply chain in the nuclear area, and potentially look at benefits of standardization in the supply chain. Standardization not so much on the core, but in the peripheral technologies in order to reach economies of scale and reduce cost fast enough and keep the competitiveness of this energy source. Now, President also mentioned before, there are nuclear energy has not been recognized by everybody in Europe, by all our member states in Europe or other countries in the world as an indispensable part of the story towards a low carbon technology. So it is important to keep public confidence on nuclear technology very high. And on this, we need to pay attention to the 3 S's, to safety, security, and good safeguards in an environment of non-proliferation. So it is on these areas that we have developed in Europe the most ambitious legislation in terms of safety, and we try to enforce it, the Euratom safety regulations in Europe, in all our member states engaged in nuclear. We have to ensure the highest level of security, which is the responsibility of the member states, and we need to ensure the highest level of safeguards regime in Europe and worldwide in cooperation with the IAEA. And I'm happy to see also that the UK, who is, has decided to leave the EU, has already stated up front that they commit to have to the highest levels of safeguards equivalent to what we have now as part of the EU 28. So with these introductory remarks, I want to thank you again for the invitation, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gerasimos Thomas. And you were talking about the post-Fukushima era in which we are. Mr. Shinozaka, I invite you now for Japan on the desk.
Yes, thank you for Mr. Austin and introducing. My name is Shin Hosaka from Japan. And ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and I'll do remarks shortly and related to the Japanese nuclear industry and the situation, including the safety. Oh, yeah. And following the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident 7 years ago, we reviewed the Japanese energy policy on a zero basis, but nuclear power is still an important power source for Japan. In the strategic energy plan of 2014, the cabinet decided that nuclear power is an important base load power source for Japan, while continuing to reduce its reliance on nuclear power as much as possible and to continue its cycle policy. Furthermore, in 2050, we decided the energy mix of 2030 and decided to aim at 20 to 22% of nuclear power plant ratio. This strategic energy plan is being revised and scheduled to be decided by the cabinet next week. And the public acceptance is still very severe, but these policies remain unchanged. In addition, nuclear power will be positioned as one of the options for the 2050 year, which is the goal of the Paris Agreement. After the accident at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, all nuclear power plants were stopped at one time, but 7 years after the accident, the operation has gradually been progressed little by little. And there was over 50 reactors before Fukushima Daiichi accident. 9 PWRs have been restarted up to now, including the newly restarted Oi nuclear power plants, number 3 reactor and the number 4 reactor, and Genkai nuclear power plant, number 3 reactor and the number 4 reactor. On the other hand, regarding BWR type of reactors, it takes time to restart compared with PWR. And the reason for this is that in addition to the fact that nuclear power plants are installed in places where the ground is weak, installation of filter vent facility with time of construction is essential for restarting. Nevertheless, last year, TEPCO, Tokyo Electric Company, and the Kashiwazaki Kariha nuclear power plant, number 6 reactor, and the number 7 reactor acquired the permission. And I'd like to expect steady progress in safety review by the nuclear regulation authorities. Under the idea that the risk will not be zero, it is important not only to satisfy regulatory standards, but also utilities themselves pursue improvement of safety and disaster prevention measures. As a result, utility may properly manage risks. Establishment of organization to support utilities in improving safety. And from here on, I would like to introduce Japan's voluntary safety improvement efforts after the accident. First, in November 2012, the Japan Nuclear Safety Institute, named JANSI, was established as an organization for self-regulatory body that strongly drives nuclear safety in an independent position from the utilities. JANSI carries out the peer review of the power plant and evaluates the operation management performance of the operator. In October 2014, the Nuclear Risk Research Center, named NRRC, was established with the aim of developing a method to evaluate the risk of nuclear power, including external events such as earthquake and tsunamis. Towards a new inspection system in 2020, the Japanese government planned to develop technical infrastructure and human resource development for risk-informed decision-making, RIDM, using risk-informed information with nuclear power companies. Robust system for continuing improving nuclear safety. And this figure shows the relationship that should exist to secure nuclear safety. First of all, as shown in step 1, it is premised that each nuclear power company carries out regulatory seriously. On top of that, As shown in step 2, self-regulation and utilization of risk information are important and function to urge operators to conduct safety measures on their own initiative rather than passive. Furthermore, as shown in step 3, the industry, including makes and research institutes, pursues safety as a whole and reflects the latest knowledge on safety measures so that dialogue with regulatory bodies has started. I think that it will lead to further improvement of safety. We call the relationship autonomous and a system for continuous improvement of nuclear safety and aim to establish that. In Japan, new organization, ATENA, named the Atomic Energy Association, ATENA, will be established in this July, to support enhancing utility works for nuclear safety to the excellence level. The entity will represent nuclear industry, including utilities, manufacturers, and construction companies. ATENA will help nuclear operations with their effort to improve nuclear safety by specifying challenges in nuclear power safety that the nuclear industry needs to address. Coordinating the nuclear industry's activity to discuss solutions to changes. Having representative nuclear industry specialists to join discussion on solutions to challenges. Developing into a technical reports about solutions for challenges and publishing it. The government would like to support voluntary efforts of such industry as much as possible. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Osaka. Arigato. Last but not least, Mr. Finnerty for the honor. Please go to the desk, and then we'll be able to ask you a few questions, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for the opportunity for speaking to you today. So, as Director of the new Reactors Division at the Office for Nuclear Regulation, the UK's independent nuclear regulator, I'm responsible for delivering regulation of all new nuclear build in the UK. The new build landscape means that in our division, we currently do have a very large portfolio of activity, ranging from undertaking a generic design assessment process of the Chinese HPR 1000 design, licensing the Wilfer-Newid site for deployment of the UK ABWR reactor, permissioning of activities to support the construction of Hinkley Point C, and providing support to government and industry for the possible introduction of small modular reactors technology. I'm also ONR's champion for its enabling approach to regulation. This is an approach whereby we carry out our activities in a way that supports those we regulate to comply and grow. I fully understand the impact our decisions can have on those we regulate, and that disproportionate regulation can seriously inflate the cost of new nuclear build. To this end, the message I give to my team is that we must take a strategic approach to our regulation, with the ultimate objective to regulate delivery of safe and secure new reactors that can be achieved in a cost-effective manner. Notwithstanding the benefits that this approach brings, it doesn't prevent or curtail us from holding industry to account on behalf of the public where it's appropriate to do so. And we have a number of regulatory tools that are available to use in a proportionate and independent manner if necessary. Our generic design assessment process may be a familiar process to you. This very much follows our enabling approach by providing clarity of regulatory requirements and the financial impacts at the earliest opportunity, thereby reducing project commercial risks and optimizing the safety of the design. However, the GDA is not the only step to our regulation of new build. Licensing and assessment of the site-specific activities, such as construction and commissioning, are very important steps of the regulatory process. Nevertheless, ONR takes the same enabling approach to these activities, working constructively with licensees as well as prospective licensees to achieve positive outcomes. This collaborative working recognises the importance of this owner-operator model that we are talking about today. At Hinkley Point C, progress on the UK's first nuclear reactor for almost 30 years is clearly evident. The EPR has gone through the GDA process and the site has been licensed. ONR has an extensive programme of work in place to engage constructively with the licensee, NMB HPC, as it prepares for the next stage of construction, Nuclear Island Concrete, which it hopes to achieve later this year. ONR's regulatory activities are focused on its assessment of the pre-construction safety report, with HPC making good progress against the outstanding technical justifications and closing out findings from the GDA process. ONR recognises benefits to be gained in stabilising the design and is working closely with HPC to help achieve an optimised design that can be operated safely and securely. We are also focusing on the supply chain, seeking confidence that HPC has in place the necessary assurances that all aspects of the build meet the required quality standards. This applies to elements built on site, for example, as part of the civil construction, or off-site, for example, components that make up the pressure boundary, where build quality and adherence to requisite standards is of the utmost importance. Finally, ONR is also giving HPC's safety culture and organisational capability significant regulatory attention, as we need to ensure that it has a robust plan in place to build the capability throughout the construction phase, such that it has the necessary capacity and capability in place to build, commission and operate a nuclear reactor safely and securely. Looking further afield, ONR welcomes the replication strategy being developed for Sizewell C and appreciates the many benefits this brings, particularly in terms of the significant cost savings. But we also envisage many other benefits. From a regulatory point of view, it would not be necessary for ONR to assess large parts of the design that are replicated from HPC, unless, of course, there is a step change in international standards, for example. It would assess those site-specific aspects if feels are necessary, but these aspects are not expected to be unduly challenging for Sizewell C. Furthermore, ONR believes that the experiences and lessons learned from building HPC can be directly read across to Sizewell C, with the improved technical expertise gained by EDF and by the wider supply chain, all contributing to enhanced nuclear safety. And the benefits are not just confined to the construction phase. Operational experience and maintenance techniques gained not only just from Hinkley, but also EPRs at Taishan, Flamanville, and Olkiluoto are also sure to have positive benefits. And although a different reactor design is proposed for Bradwell, the HPR 1000, which is currently progressing through our GDA process, the same logic applies. And this particular project should also see benefits. There will undoubtedly be an improved capability and expertise across a wide range of technical disciplines that can be applied to the delivery of major nuclear construction projects. This will surely help developers improve productivity, achieve right first-time construction targets, and will almost certainly contribute to enhanced nuclear safety. The UK government's recent announcement that it is to enter into negotiations with Hitachi in relation to the proposed Wilphenure project underlines its support for a new nuclear build. As the UK's independent regulator, we will ensure that we will continue to regulate the new build sector in a proportionate manner, ensuring we do not add unnecessary costs to the process. We believe that the enabling approach we take is both effective and efficient in its regulation of the UK nuclear industry. However, we will continue to challenge ourselves to ensure that we develop as a modern, flexible and agile regulator, which is particularly important given the changing landscape and the potential for new nuclear build projects in the UK. And in so doing, we will always act in a way that ensures that people in society are protected, holding duty holders to account whenever it's appropriate to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mike Finnerty, and thanks to the four of you for those brilliant and accurate speeches. And we've got 25 minutes to answer the questions, which is quite a miracle. So thank you for your discipline. You've not been too long. Now we're going to discover the questions from the audience that will appear right here on the screen, if they appear. Otherwise, I have my own question. The first question is for you, Mr. Osaka. Based on your presentation as the Japanese government, how do you intend to be involved in the efforts of the industry of the future? Please, you can all take your mics.
Okay, thank you on the question. And the Japanese and the nuclear industry has been making best effort to improve the nuclear safety activities, and with reference to the experience of the USA and after the 3 Mile accident, but it is hard to say, and as I mentioned earlier, the public confidence, public acceptance, and is not in nuclear power has recovered. And even after 7 years and the past and after Fukushima Daiichi accident, Fukushima first Daiichi accident, this is partly attributable to the fact that such industry safety improvement effort is nearly and invisible from the society and has not been fully and recognized by citizens. So therefore the Japanese government would like to consider the way to develop or construct frameworks for the effective dissemination of the aims, contents, and the result of the activities for safety improvement in collaboration with the industry, especially in addition to active support on the public relations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Osaka. We'll discover the second question right now, appearing on the screen. This next question: how many new nuclear reactors are needed in Europe to reach the Paris Agreement's targets? It might be for you, Mr. Thomas.
Well,
hard question.
I think I outlined a bit that our forecasts or scenarios envisage about 100 gigawatt from now to 2050. The capacity is going to probably go down a little bit in the next 15 to 20 years and then pick up, and is expected, in fact, to pick up more after 2050. I think how many reactors, it depends a bit on the industry and the countries. They might want to do SMRs, or they might want to do EPRs, or a mixture of two. So I think it depends on the technology, but I think that what is important is to remain open in all technology and innovation that it is coming forward. And that is, as it was said by the Prime Minister this morning, I think we need to see the complementarity of the different technologies that lead to decarbonization, and what is the best way to have the various low-carbon technologies cooperate with each other and to remain open to technological change.
It's all a question of balance between renewable and nuclear. Is that correct?
But also technological change within nuclear. We have seen from EDF, for example, that there is continuous improvements and efficiency in the different technologies. We had the opportunity, as Euratom and European Commission, we are neutral on technology and on the choices of the member states, but we were very lucky to have presentations by EDF and other suppliers in Brussels to see how within the group innovation is very important.
Thank you so much. Let's discover the third question. I'm sure it will be for the two of you, or one of you. This new question is, does EDF, it's for you, Mr. Levy, forecast to build EPR in other European countries different than France and UK? What do you plan?
I will respond to the question by saying that we expect to build EPR in other European countries as much as this meets each country's sovereignty definition of its energy mix. We do see a number of countries that are quite eager to continue to have a significant portion of their power come from nuclear. We do see a few that don't have nuclear and that are seeking to create nuclear capacity in their country. And we also see a few that have stated that in the short term, like in Germany, or in longer time horizons, they have said they would like that the nuclear facilities are shut down. So this shows the diversity of situations in Europe. And may I include the UK in Europe, if you don't mind, Sarah? We see that in the UK, for instance, and you did mention such projects, that we are now on the verge of quite a number of new projects. Some are based on the French technology, some are based on Chinese technology, which obviously has to be adapted to UK safety requirements. Some that we see in the press, and I will not expect any comments from you, are based on some Japanese technology. So we see quite a flourishing set of projects in the UK, and we see the UK genuinely and sincerely engaged into decarbonization of its power supply, as we have seen that what used to be a major coal-based country is now just short of being a no-coal country at all. In a few years, it will be. We see other countries having made totally different policies. Many people observe that there is quite a distance between pro-climate statements and reality of energy mix decisions. We have to be ready at EDF, maybe to lobby for energy mix policies to be more consistent with COP21 statements, and I will leave it here.
Nice, so you've got good perspectives inside Europe in the coming years. Let's see the fourth question right now, maybe for Mike Finnerty. What is the role of digital in a nuclear future? You can all answer this question if you've got a short answer, because that's a very crucial question at the moment. Mr. Finnerty.
I mean, clearly we are within the UK, and we heard about the flourishing UK industry in the UK, and we recognise that technology has a role. I think the important thing is that digital clearly will have a role, but it's up to the operator, it's up to the licensee to demonstrate the safety. And if they can demonstrate digital can operate and control nuclear systems adequately, then that's fine. We are happy with that approach.
Thank you so much. Would you like to have a word on that question also, Mr. Levy?
I would like to say that when I look at the question, I would like to answer positively.
Sure.
But also remembering everybody that we should always be very vigilant that the digital economy brings tools to people who don't like the nuclear industry, and that our cybersecurity requirements are extremely stringent, and that this is a #1 priority for us. This being said, obviously digital will help build a more efficient nuclear industry. We will announce, I think it is tomorrow, I'm looking at my team, some major decisions in building a new digital, I would say, wider enterprise digital network in order for us to work in a fully digitized environment inside the company, but also together with our partners in the supply chain. We see that obviously as a way to be much more efficient and much more reliable in the way that we build, and then it will operate in the future. So yes, digital is a big plus, but let's not forget the threat of cyber attacks.
In one word, Mr. Thomas, Mr. Osaka?
I think a digital union is one of our priorities going forward, and we support very much the digital technologies, but cybersecurity, it's something on which we are making more stringent regulations, and the security of our energy generation is taking particular attention with the stress tests that we undertake at European level, both for the nuclear and the other power plants. I think it's telling that in one of my recent visits in a nuclear power plant preparing an LTO, they were revising their initial policy that they will digitalize as part of LTO, and thinking of potentially staying with more traditional technologies due to the cyber threat.
Thank you, Mr. Osaka.
Yeah, and the Japanese industry has good technology and for Internet of Things, including artificial intelligence. And if we can use the IoT technology and the artificial intelligence AI technology and for the nuclear power industry, we can improve on the safety possibility. And so on the Japanese government and ready to support and the R&D and the nuclear power industry digitalized and the situation.
Right, so you're quite optimistic and careful at the same time. Let's get another question. Always takes a few seconds, but it will appear. Next question, could you explain us why European politics decisions are different between countries concerning nuclear plants and energy transition? And finally, why you don't have a common European project?
Well, energy policy is what we call in Europe a shared responsibility, where each country decides its own energy mix. So it's not any federal competence or EU competence on deciding the energy mix in each country. What remains under EU responsibility is to make sure that safety regulations and safeguards regulations are adhered to, and that is our institutional framework. I think beyond that, what Euratom has done and continues to do is to support innovation and research. So we do have innovations and research programs that focus more on the safety aspects of new technologies, both in the front and the back end. And we also have a policy to bring together our nuclear safety regulators and under our new Euratom directives. The regulators are obliged to work on a peer review basis. So there is a peer review system that it is enshrined now in our regulation. For example, this year, all our 28 regulators have undertaken a peer review of their aging management systems, the same way that we did the post-Fukushima stress tests, and this enhances the awareness and the exchange of best practice and oversight between the different national regulators. But we are short of supporting at the EU level projects of investment of single production on one or another technology. Thank you.
So you can support, but there's no global plan because it's a question of national sovereignty. Next question coming from the audience. This time, from your point of view, which operators' responsibilities should be anticipated at the early stage of a project development? You can answer that question, Mr. Finati.
Oh, well, yeah, thank you. So the operator, first and foremost, it's the operator that has responsibility for safety and security on the site. Nevertheless, there are a number of things that it can do too very early in the project. If I could point out some of them. I talked in my opening address about the importance of stability of design, and actually, if they can stabilize the design very early in the project, there are lots of benefits in doing this. There are two other aspects as well, I think, which I should point out. One is actually having a real understanding of the supply chain and ensuring that it does have that assurance in place that it can verify the actual quality and the standards used by the supply chain. And the other thing as well is the importance of building capability. We recognize that once a reactor is operating, it will have a completely different organization from right at the start of a project. Nevertheless, if it has a clear plan in place about how it can build the technical capability and the expertise necessary to actually design, construct, and then run an operating plant, this is really helpful in the project.
Thank you, Mr. Finati. We've got 10 minutes left. Let's take the last questions, and now I will ask you a conclusion within the 5 last minutes. The next question is about something clearly very interesting, which will appear. How should we balance technology diversity against, economy? No, another one. Okay, Jean-Bernard Lévy, how can the owner-operator model be extended to countries without previous experience embarking on nuclear power based on a fleet of small reactors? The question of small reactors is very important at the moment. Aha. It's got to be a nice question.
Yeah, and I'm not sure first, I'm not sure who raised the question.
We don't know.
I'm not really sure what's meant if we see a country that do have some skills based on a fleet of small reactors and that would like to grow their skills into an owner-operator model. I think the question maybe, you know, at one point in time, what does it make to have an owner-operator that can have the full responsibility? And I think what we all talked about today is about responsibility. So I think it's all about the time it takes. I think we know that nuclear gives a lot of long-term benefits, but you do not become an efficient nuclear, I would say, country or ecosystem without having invested in the skills. I think there are plenty of operators, and EDF is one of them, but not the only one. EDF is one of them that is happy to support countries that would like to lead the way from where they are, and demonstrating that you can become an efficient owner-operator. I think we have done so in the past, and I'm thinking of South Africa, I think is a good example. We have, obviously, in a country that do have an industrial set of skills, without maybe not having such a large industry, but in some industries, South Africa has demonstrated to be extremely efficient. And I think based on this good industrial culture, with a lot of support, we have been able to transfer these skills to, let's name them, Eskom in South Africa. And they have built, with the support of EDF and Framatome, and they have built Koeberg, and Koeberg has been operating very well for the last 20 plus years. I'm not sure, 22, 24, something like this. So I think it does show that with the right investment in manpower, in skills, the right support that can come from third parties, you can build such a reliable system in full safety. We do believe that our friends in Koeberg are a bit like, you know, maybe the 59th and 60th reactor of our nuclear fleet. And by the way, although it was a long time ago and obviously safety requirements were very different, which is the same based on the transfer of technology that was implemented in France 50, 60 years ago. So I think the owner-operator model can no doubt be extended to people who will have the patience and the upfront investment understanding of the situation.
Thank you very much. Another question coming from the audience before we conclude this panel session. What will be the next question? Quite a lot of questions, by the way, and thank you for your very short answers. Maybe it was the last. I don't know. If someone can just give me a sign, because it stays a lot. It was the last question. So you've got a few minutes, each of you, to conclude by a few words. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about how optimistic you are. Oh no, there's another question. New organization will be established in the Japanese industry, and what kind of relationship it's for you, Mr. Osaka? Do you expect to build with existing organizations, JANSI and RRC, to work on improving safety?
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, and so the Japanese and the nuclear industry and has been constructing and the new system and regarding and the nuclear safety. So they think and the JANSI and RRCs and the Athena are needed in Japan, and with reference to the experience of USA. So already JANSI and the self and the safety and the body. So in RRC is and the assessment on risk, and the Athena is and will be and the assess and the mentioned and the unified and the opinion of and the nuclear industry to and the regulatory body. So we can start to, we mean that the Japanese industry, the Japanese government start to communicate including the regulatory authority inside the Japanese industry.
And Athena will start on next month, on July. Is that correct? Right, now a word of conclusion for the four of you. Let's start with you, Mr. Finnerty. How optimistic are you for the immediate future in the context?
Well, I mean, if I just look at the UK, I think the key thing is it's about confidence. I think as we see, I mentioned Hinkley looking towards nuclear island concrete later in the year, and I think from this will develop a confidence in both in the industry, but also in terms of financial investors who can actually see the new stations actually being built and being operated worldwide. And so I think this confidence will really breed confidence across the globe. So we are an independent regulator, and we have no, not siding one way or the other. But nevertheless, I can absolutely see there's a confidence within the industry.
Confidence is a word that you used also, Mr. Thomas. Is it the key of the future, including for the European Union?
Yes, I think we cannot have a successful owner-operator model unless we have strong and independent regulators. And within the EU, this involves also having a very strong cooperation among the regulators, either in peer reviewing their decisions or in terms of coordinating in new licensing. I mean, the whole, both the operators and the regulators will move into a new era. The last 20, 30 years, they have just been operating existing plants, and then the regulators need to licensing new technologies in new plants, and the operators have to develop. You need a different kind of cooperation, different kind of skills. And I think I'm very glad to see in the exhibition today that we have this new approach from the operators and the regulators. I think we need the same, however, level of responsibility from both operators and owners on safety, on the highest safety standards. We had in Europe a very successful 60 years of nuclear without any incidents or safety problems, and I think we need the same level of responsibility from both owners and operators and regulators on this. And the last comment I will say, I think regarding the future, we have only talked about nuclear and the role in electricity production. We have to see whether new technologies will allow nuclear to be involved in other areas, you know, in heating, cooling, in desalination, you know, new technologies that we will see around, and possibilities for nuclear energy to be involved in other parts and not only into electrification scenarios.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Osaka, confidence is a key word, especially in your country also.
Yeah, and of course, in case of Japan and the Japanese and the utility companies and nuclear power industry and the Japanese and our agency and the is setting and the first priority on the restarting and the BW type of reactors with the safety. And we need to improve and the public acceptance related to the nuclear power industry. So we will explain our policy through the strategic and the energy plan. And we will establish some framework to communicate the two ways between the Japanese utilities and the public people. So finally, we will support Japanese government and support the R&D and the innovation and of the new generation of the reactors and for more and the safety. So we have to, with Japanese government, and they have to communicate with the Japanese utilities and the nuclear industry and the Japanese and the public people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Osaka. The last word is for you, Mr. Chairman. Are you optimistic? You contributed to launch the first EPR last month, so EDF must be...
Obviously very optimistic because we believe maybe we are at a turning point because we see confidence in the nuclear industry to be back at a high level. I think I would like to stress our joint responsibilities overall, whether coming from regulators, from government or EU and so on, and of course the industry. I think we have a joint responsibility because we know we will only succeed in our climate objectives if we have a rational way to explain what we do to the people. I think we need to feel that right now, in terms of energy, there are many problems with the acceptance of what we are doing. Obviously, acceptance of renewables is not that easy, and especially with wind energy. Acceptance of chemical-based solutions is not so easy either in many of the alternative solutions. Acceptance of nuclear has always been a problem and still is. And at the end of the day, as utilities, we have the responsibility to ensure security of supply and cheap prices to all our clients. And we need to make sure we understand the responsibility we have in that respect, the climate, the efficiencies, but also the acceptance of what we do, and I am confident we are on the right track in that direction.
Thank you very much to the four of you for those very clear answers. I think we can all applaud our four gentlemen, four guests. It's the end. It's exactly 3 o'clock. Thank you for this panel discussion and have a nice exhibition. Thanks a lot.